Hello, trail seekers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Join the Facebook group Learn True Health in Facebook because I've got some exciting news coming up, and I'm going to be announcing it there first, and I want you to be the first to hear it. So please join the Learn True Health Facebook group. Plus, we have some awesome giveaways that always happen and wonderful conversations. It's a great group to be in, a great community. Very supportive community. And jump on my email list. I give you 7 days of videos that I filmed with naturopathic physicians teaching you the foundations of health. All good information that everyone should know. Very fun course. It's all free. So go to learntruehealth.com and a pop-up happens and just put in your email. I promise I will not spam you. I send out maybe 3 emails a month. But you will get every day for 7 days, you will get videos that I filmed with these naturopaths who are wonderful doctors teaching the foundations of health. So join the Facebook group and get on the website and join the email list so that you get the news first, because I have some really exciting news coming up and I want to make sure that you're connected so that you get it. You're going to love today's interview. I loved interviewing Jon Paul, and I can't wait to have him back on the show. I think this information is something that 100% of the population needs to hear. You know, some interviews are just for women, or some interviews are just for people with thyroid problems, and this interview is for 100% of the population. I'm very excited for you to hear it. Please share it with those that you love, that you know it will help me to spread this information and get it out to as many people as possible so we can help all of our loved ones and everyone we care about to learn true health. Enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 391. I am so excited for today's guest. We have on with us Jon Paul Crimi. I love your last name. I'm saying it like you told me to say it, like an Italian. Crimi.
That's right, Crimi. It's beautiful. I love it. Thank you.
Jon Paul has a wonderful website, breathewithjp.com. We are in the presence of a celebrity here. I'm feeling the pressure, starting to feel the Hollywood pressure. You've been working in Hollywood for the last 20 years with the bigwigs, and you are sought after. Your classes are full, your teacher trainings are full, and your breath technique that you've developed over the last 20 years has helped people to become very successful in the Olympics, in Hollywood, CEOs, major corporations, and executives. So today we get to jam with you and figure out what's up with breathwork and why are all the celebrities just jumping on the bandwagon. What's up? And so good to have you here today.
Thanks. It's great to be here. At first, I don't think I'm celebrity. I'm more celebrity adjacent.
Okay.
So I'm like, next to the celebrities or working with the celebrities. I've worked with a lot of celebrities over the years, and I found that when I'm standing next to some big celebrity, I'm pretty much invisible. It's okay. I'm happy to be invisible. But lately I've been in the spotlight with the breath work. It's really taken off, and people have really taken to it, which is it's fantastic to see, because it changes people's lives in a very short amount of time. Which is great, because we live in this society today that everybody wants a quick fix, and there really aren't any quick fixes out there, right? But this actually is a quick fix. And like in one session, the most common statement I hear is, "Oh my God, that was like 20 years of therapy without having to say a word." So if you can feel that way after one session or one class or one workshop, that it sells out. People come in droves, and then they have this experience. Then they bring their family members back and their friends back and everyone they know that needs it, which is everyone right now on the planet, it seems like.
You were telling me before we hit record that you were just in a Hay House, which is a publishing company, a Hay House summit.
Well, so yeah, it was the Heal, the Heal documentary on Netflix. Heal had a Hay House online summit. So
okay.
It was great. It was like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Michael Beckwith, Dr. Michael Beckwith, Dr. Uh, you know, Sue Mortimer, and it was like Dr. Jon Paul Crimi, Doctor.
I like in
And
your website you say, "I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor,"
yeah,
but what you do helps people to access their body's own ability to heal itself. And after you were on the summit, your interview was only available for 24 hours. You said after that, hundreds of people came to your website and bought your 5-day course. You have this course. We're going to definitely talk about it because I'm interested in learning more about it. And then you started to get the flood of emails. You've been telling me that the weekend's been nonstop emails of people telling you that what they learned and what they've done with you and your coursework so far has been nothing short of life-changing.
yeah. I mean, to read the emails and to hear the stories from people saying that they let go of, trauma that they've been holding on to their whole life, that their bodies are starting to heal, because so much of our physical health is due to emotional health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can start to clear out that stuff, those negative emotions or things that we're storing in our body, then some of that physical health will start to get better. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we can dive into that because that's a big part of my own personal story as well. So just hearing the stories from people who are doing this course all over the world and having these incredible results, and then they want to turn around and give it to other people, to show it to other people. And so I'm creating these like soldiers for good out there, of people taking other people through breath work and changing lives. It's the greatest thing I've ever done. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And it's, in a million years, I never would have thought I would be doing something like this. It's just, I'm not that guy, I'm not your typical guy who,
Guru?
yeah, I'm not a guru. I don't like that. I'm a breath teacher, and I'm just not that guy. I'm from, the South Shore of Boston, Massachusetts, where people are kind of rough and tumble, um, and I grew up in a really rough way, and this thing was never on my radar. None of this stuff was on my radar, but the universe is a funny way of pushing you down roads through pain, right?
Mm. Well, we'll definitely get into your story in a minute. I studied Huna, which is the ancient Polynesian spiritual practice. I can't really call it a religion, but in Hawaii, they practice Huna every step of, if they're practicing Huna, it's part of their life. It's part of how they go fishing. It's part of how they are a parent. It's part of how they practice medicine. It's part of how they chant. It's every aspect of their life. And they have a saying in Hawaii. They call foreigners or white people howlies.
Yep.
And they say it's a derogatory, almost a racist term, but haole means without breath
Mm,
because they were, imagine, a few hundred years ago, the ancient Polynesian Hawaiian people had never met any foreigners and they were living in harmony. There was actually no recorded accounts of mental illness at all.
oh,
There was no depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, nothing. People were fishing and gardening and dancing and raising families, and they were harmonious.
yep.
And then these ships came out of nowhere, and and most people there, the natives, were half naked, because it's really hot. And these people, these missionaries, come dressed head to toe in wool, holding Bibles and telling them that they needed to stop being sinners and get dressed.
Oh,
And the Hawaiians noticed that these people would never pause and take a breath. That they would just like breathe shallow and be kind
hmm,
of nervous and emotional but uptight at the same time. And the
yep.
Hawaiians would actually take a breath. Part of the practice, part of their huna, was that when you met someone to say hello, you'd pause and you would take a breath and then you would say hello.
Yep.
And that you would pause to eat and you would
Yeah.
pause before you fished and take a breath. And everything they did was they would stop, take a breath, and then do something. And so when these foreigners came and they never paused to take a breath, they called them haole, without breath. And I thought that was so
Mm,
interesting, that distinction of our Western culture, that we
yep.
are without breath.
I've heard the term haole quite a bit because I have some surfer friends from Hawaii, and I have a really good friend that was in this movie North Shore, where he says in the movie, he's so howly he doesn't even know he's howly, right? Talking about the white guy in the movie, he doesn't even know that he's so like he doesn't belong. And um, it's the shallow breath that you were talking about. There's a saying, shallow breath, shallow life. Deep breath, deep
Mm.
life. And hearing that story made me think that we're so disconnected now in society, in our society. There's the four alienations, right? And it's like the first alienation is, we're disconnected from nature, from the world, right? From the earth. And they were working in nature. They were fishing and they had their feet in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're disconnected from that and we're destroying the planet. And then we're disconnected from each other, right? We're on social media, but we're not really connecting with people and listening and taking them in and spending quality time as much. We're disconnected from our work, from what we do. So many people don't love what they do for work anymore. And so they're disconnected. We're disconnected from that and we're disconnected from ourselves. That's the biggest one. So those people were connected. That's why there was no schizophrenia, there was no mental illness, there was no sickness. I mean, it's just as simple as that. It's like when you have those things in place, it's so obvious to me to see now. Like I'll work with people, and in my other business, in my sober coaching, sober companion business, and I've worked with very successful people, millionaires, some billionaires, and actors and musicians, and like they're isolated. They've isolated themselves off from the world, and they can't understand why they're not happy, and everybody else can't understand why they're not happy because it seemingly what society dictates that they have it all, right? They have the career, they're beautiful, they have money, they have success, but yet if you look at those things I just explained, they don't have any of those things. They're isolated off. They're disconnected from all those things. And when you start to sit inside and isolate yourself off from the world, your brain starts to play tricks on you and you start to think about all this stuff and then you start to read all the stuff online about you and you go down this rabbit hole and I can see how
Mm.
they quickly make themselves, sick with that.
Right. I was just reading the latest statistics of suicide rates among our youth
Mm.
is now the second leading cause of death. Suicide went up 52%, I believe it was, for ages between 10 and 24.
Ugh,
And just
10.
yesterday,
What-
no,
That's
I
like,
have
what is an
heard,
11-year-old or a 10-year-old?
right.
Like, what,
Oh,
they
oh,
should be playing outside. Like, what,
right.
why?
A
That doesn't
nine-year-old
even,
committed suicide about a month ago. It was on the news. And it's just what's going on that
that
we are
hurts my
so
heart.
disconnected. But this is recent. This is just this generation. I mean, it went up 52% in the last 10 years.
Well, what do you think that is?
We've got, well, the social media,
Social media.
and
That's it.
we're
That's it. That's it.
disconnected. We're
It-
disconnected, like you said. We're not meeting face to face, and we're more and more isolated. We think we're connected digitally, but we're actually more and more isolated.
I agree. And I think what happens too is that, you know, I had a hard time at school. And, at least when I get home from school, I had my house and my safe
Mm,
backyard and my all my stuff, right?
yeah.
And now these kids, they get home from school and now they're bullied on social media and it's endless and you can't get away from it and it's worse on social media than in school.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're constantly being bullied and barraged. I had someone close to me that I knew, one of my nieces, and she was bullied on social media where they created a website or created a profile for her that wasn't her. And I mean, it was pretty serious. She had a lot of problems around it. Um, and just the things that can happen online are awful to people. And when your brain is that young, it's not fully formed yet. And I don't think you realize that, that all that online stuff, it really isn't real. Um,
Yeah. It
but
feels like the real world.
it feels like the real world for some people.
Yeah.
And they can't separate that out because they just think that is the real world. And it's scary that suicide is, an option. I have a lot of experience with, people close to me committing suicide. It's very difficult. And Part of that course, one of the days of the 5-day emotional detox is a thing that's called the transformational letter, and that was formed out of loss of someone that was very dear to me, that committed suicide. And what was happening to me was I couldn't move the grief out. It was
Mm-hmm.
stuck, and I went and saw someone who was really wise, and they told me, write a letter to him saying everything you wish you could say, everything you want to say, everything you can't say. And I was like, yeah, I've heard that before. He's like, and then he said, write a letter back from him saying everything you want him to say, everything he can't say. Right. So I did the 2 letters, and then I laid down and I did the breath work. And it was incredible. It transformed everything for me because the letters brought all that stuff up to the surface, and it made me see what I, couldn't see, because it was, I was just stuck in a loop that I felt, guilty because I could have done more, I could have said more, I felt responsible in some way. And the letters really helped me get clear about my part in it, and also what I wanted from him, what I needed from him. And then the breath work really cleared it out of my lungs, because grief, they say, gets stuck in the lungs, and
Mm-hmm.
we hold on to it and we just keep reliving it over and over again, and we just carry it around with us. So it moved the grief out and through me, and I was able to get some kind of measure of compassion for him and what he was going through, and for myself, and let myself off the hook. Because with suicide, there's a element of guilt and to that
Mm-hmm.
we carry sometimes. And yeah, I mean, it's hard, and to see that it's so big and so prevalent in our society today, it hurts my heart to hear about a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old committing suicide. It breaks my heart. I'm really sensitive, and it was very difficult to grow up where I grew up, being as sensitive as I am. And so I had to find ways to deal with it, and the ways that I found to deal with it were not great tools, not the right tools. Um, whether it was through alcohol or drugs, or candy, or TV or whatever, just trying to check out from my feelings. and
Mm-hmm.
and now I have found all these really powerful, healthy ways of allowing, expressing those feelings. And I've just gotten to a place, and maybe part of it is, just growing up, but really I think it's the breath work. It's gotten me to this place. Someone actually messaged me today, and they said, did you, I'm really open, and I get really sensitive, and I cry, and I get emotional in my classes and in my workshops and in my teacher trainings. And she said to me, were you like that before the breath work? And I said, I no, I wasn't like that before the breath work. I couldn't access those feelings. I wouldn't allow those feelings, and I certainly wouldn't allow it in a room full of people. And now I've just gotten to this place now where I'm like, I don't care if I'm on a stage in front of 200 people. I don't care if I'm on a podcast or an interview or something like that. And I start to get emotional because that's what I'm feeling, right?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, let me allow that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad that 9-year-olds are committing suicide. It's terrible, right? So let me just allow that for a minute, instead of going like, oh, that's, I don't want to feel that,
That's
because I
so
need to
healthy. That's
I,
so
I need
healthy.
I
Just
need to
let,
I need to be present for this interview. I
yeah.
need to do the best interview I can, or I need
No.
to do the best class I can. It's like, no, let me just be sad, and
That's
let that come
so
through me.
healthy.
And what I've discovered, just coincidentally, because I was actually teaching breathwork when that guy committed suicide, and I was gonna not cancel the classes, and I said, no, I'm gonna go. And I was so emotional in the classes. And what happened was, me being so emotional allowed everybody else in the room to let their emotions out and let their emotions go. And so it gave permission for people breathing in the room to get emotional.
Mm.
And so we don't get that permission. A lot of us
Yes.
growing up, right? We didn't get to be strong, be tough, don't never let anyone see you cry, never let anyone see your emotions. That's a lot of the messages that I heard growing up, and that most of the people I knew growing up heard growing up. And so we get these messages that, and knowing what I know now, it's terrible, because if I was to say to you, listen, Ashley, I don't want you to go to the bathroom. Don't go to the bathroom, okay? You'd be like, what? Like, that's so unhealthy. You're going to die, right? But why is it crying? is the same exact thing. Our bodies need it. It's a mechanism within our bodies to cleanse us and help us release certain emotions. And yet I have people who come to my classes and my things and say, "Oh my God, that's the first time I've cried in 3 years or 5 years." I'm like, you're going to get sick. You're going to get some horrible disease if you don't start allowing those emotions. Because we're supposed to cry. We're supposed to allow those things. And for some reason,
Mm.
people are not. They're fighting back all that stuff. And it's just, it's causing a lot of health issues out there in the world.
Men are taught not to cry, and I've caught my husband. My husband's very open-minded, and just he's not like a, I don't know, 1950s male that, thinks we all need to like eat meat and men don't have feelings. He's very evolved, but he has caught himself saying to our 4-year-old son, men don't cry. Don't cry.
Yeah.
Stop crying. Men don't cry.
Oh,
Something along that. And I jump down his throat when he says that,
well, just have
you
them
know.
watch The Mask We Live In. That
Ooh.
documentary. That's a game changer. When you watch that as a man and you see what we do to boys, to little boys, when we put that on them, it just breaks your heart. And you go, oh, why are we doing this to little boys? They're
Mm-hmm.
little boys. They're just as sensitive as little girls. They're not, you know what I mean? There's no difference in
Right.
the sensitivity level. So, when my son cries, I just pick him up and I rub his back and I say, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, let it out, um, I heard a lot, you're too sensitive growing up. And what does that mean? Like, there's something wrong with me? There's something wrong with my feelings? So, and if I say something bothers me, the response was, you're too sensitive. So now whatever I said bothers me is invalid. It's me. There's something wrong with me. Right. So, our parents, if they knew better, they do better. A lot of, our stuff comes from our parents, and a lot of it comes from their stuff comes from their parents, and it's passed on generationally, and their trauma is passed on generationally as well. So, I say, your problems may have other people's names on it, but your solutions have your name on it. And it's up to you if you're going to do something about it and change it for your
Mm-hmm.
children.
Absolutely. And we can really only heal ourselves, and we can make a better environment for our children. Um, I want to get into your story. What happened in your life that led you to create this type of breath work that helps people heal physically and emotionally?
Well, so I didn't create it. This breath work has been around for thousands of years from India,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I wish I created it.
Well, you created your own unique style,
I
though.
did. I created a technique that breath work has been around for thousands of years from India. And what happened was for me is I discovered this incredible technique, and it was life-changing from my first session. But the package that it was wrapped in, the way it was done was so new agey and woo-woo that I was just like, somehow had an open enough mind to do it. I mean, I just been to Tony Robbins, and I think that cracked me open. And then a couple people that didn't know each other said to me, "You need to go do breath work." And I was like, "What's breath work?" And I found this place, and I went to this class, and there was 5 or 6 people there, and it was very woo-woo, new agey, crystals and oils and all of it. It was just awful, and for me, then, and but the experience was undeniable, and so I started doing it on my own every day. And I said at one point, I said, God, if somebody did this in a way that wasn't new agey and that wasn't woo woo, they would have 200 people in the room and they would change the world. And I started teaching it. I was never going to teach it, but I somehow started teaching it. And I took all that woo woo stuff out of it, and I actually added in all this other stuff to make it even more palatable for people. And then I added in a few more components, and it just built, and it just kept tweaking it and going, how would I want this if I was on the other side? If I was the person laying on the floor right now, what's the best experience that I can deliver for somebody? So I just shaped it and honed it, and it became that. And now, tons of people are doing it the same way. Some of them have been trained by me, some of them haven't. That's a whole other story. But it's been incredible. It's been an incredible ride. And at first, no one would come do it. Like, I would tell people like, you got to come try this thing. And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would post about it. And then there was times that one person would show up and I was renting the room and losing money. And I was like, God, I want to help people, but I don't want to lose money in the process. But now it's just grown massively and it's incredible. And everything's sold out that I do. And I'm just so grateful, you know?
So take us back to when it wasn't working out and there's one person in the room. What happened? How did you all of a sudden become so popular?
So it was kind of a series of events. So I, I kept just pursuing it where I would post on Facebook and try and get friends of mine. And I have a lot of friends in recovery, and I would just tell them, like, I started to, I'd hear them share about how depressed they were, or how angry they were, and all this stuff. And people could see the change in me. Like, at first, when I was doing it, I wasn't even telling people, and people were like, what's going on with you? You seem very calm. You're very different. I was really angry when I found it. I was so angry because some career dreams hadn't worked out for me, and I'd been kind of ripped off in Hollywood, and I was just so bitter and so angry. And you can't hide that.
Mm.
It just comes out. And they say that anger is the mask that sadness wears. So the truth is that I was just sad. I was disappointed. I was heartbroken that things didn't work out, that I got ripped off, that all these different things had happened to me. But I didn't want to feel sad, so it came out as anger. And I started doing this breath work, and it just released that anger out of me. It just cleared that anger out of me. And it allowed the sadness to come out. And it allowed me to cry. And then it allowed me to feel gratitude and love in a way that I had never experienced before. Um, so I was just doing it every day, sometimes twice a day. And I could just feel these things leaving my body, and I could feel things in my body that had happened to me. Like I broke my arm when I was a kid, and I was like, there was something going on in my arm right there. And it was just healing all these areas, all these traumas within my body. And it just started to change me. And clients and friends were saying, like, you seem different. And I said, finally started telling people, like, I'm doing this weird breathwork thing. And I could, there was no research. There was like nothing out there on it at the time. I would try and find information, and I was a personal trainer. I was a celebrity trainer at Gold's Gym in Venice. And I had the very scientific brain of like, what's happening in my body. And I couldn't find the science around it. And there is some science out there now, and they're doing more and more studies on it. They're just starting to go into the studies. And right now, they're doing a study with breathwork on veterans with PTSD, which I
Oh.
think the results are going to be amazing from that, because
Mm-hmm.
I've had veterans with PTSD come in and work with me, and seen them heal in front of my eyes, and see them just transform and clear all this stuff out. So I'm so looking forward to watching this thing grow, and it's growing really fast. I tell people, like, imagine if I told you there was this thing, it's called yoga, and it's going to be everywhere. They'd be like, really, yoga? It's going to be everywhere, And I'm like, but it's going to be even bigger than yoga, because a lot of people will go, well, I'm 300 pounds, I can't do yoga, or I'm not flexible, or I'm not this, or they just don't have the confidence in their body type to go into a yoga studio. Whereas anyone can come to a breathwork class and just lay on the floor and breathe. And breathwork, I should straighten this out. Breathwork is an umbrella term, right? So it's like saying fitness. If I said, you I do fitness, you'd be like, well, okay, fitness, what do you do? Do you do CrossFit? Do you do cycling? What do you do? Do you do yoga? So breath work, the type of breath work that I teach, the technique that I teach, and I've studied them all, but this is the one that I found is the most powerful. So I work with this one specifically, is called connected breathing, circular breathing. So in life, you take a breath in through your nose, ideally, and down into your belly, ideally, and let it out either through your nose or your mouth. And then you pause for a while and you talk or you rest. But in breath work, we breathe in and out. And through this technique, through conscious connected breathing, through circular breathing, we breathe in and out through our mouth, down into our belly without resting in between. And it's intense. So a lot of people have this misconception that they're going to come and it's going to be this relaxing kind of like a meditation class. And it's not that at all. It's a workout. You lay on the floor and you breathe intensely through your mouth for about 28 minutes. And in that process, all these crazy things happen in your body physically, all these things happen emotionally, all these things happen mentally. And, most people have this huge release of emotions. And it doesn't matter if you believe in it or you think it's going to work or any of that. It's undeniable for anyone. In fact, the more resistant to it you are, the bigger the experience. So that's what I love about it. I'll have some woman who will do it, and then she'll go, "My husband or my boyfriend would never do this, but he'll do it with you because you're a guy." So the next week or the next month, I see the woman there with her boyfriend or her husband, and he's just sitting there like, "I can't believe she dragged me to this." And then afterwards, he comes up to me, and I can see that he's been crying. He's had this big experience, and he's like, "Can I give you a hug? Like I've never experienced anything like that. That was the most profound experience." And it it was life changing. Like that's what I hear a lot. It's life changing. So to answer your question, it slowly just started to grow, person by person. You get one person who has a huge experience, they would go and tell everyone they know. And then the next week they would come back with 2 or 3 people. And then so on and so on and so on. And it took a while. And then there was a meditation studio that opened up in Los Angeles. And she was really the owner was really good at marketing, and she got people in there, and she had me come teach there. And my classes grew very fast in there, and they were sold out within a couple months. And so I was doing a couple classes a week there with, 66 people in the room, because that was as many as we could pack in like sardines. And there was 20 people on the wait list every Monday and Wednesday night. And it was just wild. And then I eventually left there and rented this church space, this huge church space in Los Angeles, and filled that up. And I would pack, that's what I still use to this day when I travel back to Los Angeles. I live in Bend, Oregon now, but I put 120 people in a class in that church. And I do classes when I go to town. I'll do 2 back-to-back classes sold out, which is amazing. So I'll fly to Los Angeles, say I'm leaving in 2 weeks, and I'll do a teacher training on Saturday and Sunday, where I teach people how to teach it. And then I do 2 classes on Monday at that church. And it's incredible. It's an incredible weekend for me. And then I come back to Bend, Oregon, where I live with my family and enjoy my life and spend time with my kids and chase my kids around the yard. So
Oh, that sounds so awesome.
it is.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have so many questions. The constant breathing, the first thing that comes to mind is, don't people pass out? Like, don't they get so dizzy? Because I've done it, that prana breathing,
Pranayama. Yeah.
pranayama,
Yep.
and you get lightheaded. Like, no wonder you have everyone lay down.
Yep.
They might, fall over. So do people ever faint or get really lightheaded and they're afraid of fainting? Or does that
Yeah.
just pass?
So it passes, but so one of the things when I break it down, and I usually break it down in a really funny way in the front of the room, I say, there's 3 areas that you have to overcome to do this thing, to really have a big, incredible experience. Just 3 tiny areas, just physically, mentally, and emotionally. If you could just overcome those 3 little areas, you're going to have this incredible experience. And here's what's going to happen to you. Physically, things are going to happen in your body that are going to freak you out. Your arms are going to get tingly and weird, and your hands, your fingers can clamp up. It's called tetany, and it's like claw hands. It really freaks people up, but it goes away. Your jaw can get tight. You have all these sensations. You're going to get dizzy. You can get nauseous. You can get lightheaded. All that will go away. It will pass, but you have to push through it if you want to have the experience. The second part is the emotional part, right? So emotions are going to come up. Let them come up. Let them come out. A lot of us are told that we shouldn't cry, right? A lot of us are told to be strong. And so just let that stuff out. Cry. Just let it, if it comes up for you, whatever. So let the emotions out. And then the last part is the mental part. And this is actually the toughest part I've noticed for most people, because your brain doesn't want you to do this. Your brain doesn't want you to do anything difficult, hard, or uncomfortable. So you have to override that, right? Just like going to the gym or anything else. But with this thing, your brain really freaks out because it does this thing. It's called transient hyperfrontality. It shuts off part of your brain, part of your frontal lobe, the critic that we all have that tells us we're not enough. You're not smart enough. You're not thin enough. You're not, you're not rich enough. You're not skinny enough, whatever. It just tells you you're not enough, and that you're never going to do anything, or we all have this critic in our head all the time, and it turns that off. And it is the most incredible feeling when you can turn that off, and you can go accomplish anything with your life when you can turn that off. But the brain doesn't want you to turn it off. So it does everything it can to get you to stop. So it'll be like, Ashley, stop doing this. You're going to pass out. You're having a stroke. I know he said this can happen to your hands, but you're having a stroke, Ashley. And it'll literally like freak you out. And some people can't override that. But eventually it will override. You will override it, and it's like stepping out of an airplane. Like, your body's not designed to step out of an airplane to go skydiving, right? So you have to override everything inside of your body physically to step out that door. And this is very similar in that way. And it lasts for, the hardest part is like the first 12 minutes. And then eventually you just go, I'm fine. And it just kicks in, and the breath starts taking over and breathing you. And you start having this almost psychedelic experience in some way. And it's very incredible. It's hard to describe, and it's different for everybody, and it's different every time you do it. So I've been doing it for a while now, and every time I do it, it's still different. And so I tell people, like, come back, it's going to be different. And then they're like, oh my God, that was different. And so I'm like, yeah, do it on a regular basis and it'll change your life. The way I used it to change my life was I would wake up in the morning and my head would be talking trash to me, and I would just lay down and breathe and like, okay, let's get to work on, this sober companion business. Let's get to work on, how do we build this breath work to help more people? How do we do this? How do we build online courses? I don't know anything about building an online course, but let me just breathe and clear out that critic that tells me I can't build an online course because I can barely use Facebook properly. And let me turn that critic off and then just get to work. And what you can accomplish is incredible when you're not constantly talking yourself out of it and telling yourself that you can't do things.
You've been teaching or helping people to be sober, get sober and stay sober for a long time now, longer than you were teaching breathwork, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I've been sober 19 and a half years, since March 5th, 2000. So, and I got sort of pulled into helping people get sober about a year after I got sober.
Nice.
Yeah. And that was transformative to watch other people get sober and be a part of that. Changed my life. And then I was a celebrity trainer, and then someone sort of dragged me into this world of sober coaching, sober companioning, it's a high-end niche thing where it started out for rock stars. Rock stars would get out of rehab and they'd need to go on the road for tour and they'd need support. So they would put somebody who was sober on the road with them, who knew what they were doing, right? And then they moved into movie stars and TV stars, and now it's CEOs and wealthy children, children of wealthy people, right? It's because it's not inexpensive. Insurance doesn't cover it, unfortunately. But instead of going to rehab, which is a bubble, right? It's easy to stay sober in rehab for 30 days or, whatever the time is, because you're in this bubble and they're carting you around. What a sober companion does is they go into your regular life and they help you get sober in your regular life, whether that is in your work environment, your home environment, whatever it is you do. They help you build that rehab in your life and teach you to have a sober lifestyle, because it's like taking a tree that's sick out of the environment, putting it in a rehab, nursing it back to health, and then putting it back in the environment that it got sick in.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So let's nurse the tree back to health in its environment, or let's take it out of the environment, get it healthy, and then bring it back with someone that can help it stay healthy in that environment.
So for many years, you were working with people to get sober and stay sober. And then you discovered this breath work, and then you adapted your own enhanced version of breath work that you now teach to many people. When you began to incorporate this breath work with those who you were helping to get and stay sober, what changes did you see take place?
Oh my God. I mean, it was, I would see people, because people who are newly sober or, don't want to be sober, I mean, there's a lot going on there. And I would see people just flipping out and just, I'm screaming and yelling and I'm going to go get high, or I'm going to jump off the balcony, or just like this crazy person in front of me. And then I go, okay, I'll tell you what, let's get high right now. And they look at me like, what? And I go, lay down on the floor. I'm going to get you high. And they go, shut up. And I go, no, just lay down on the floor. I'm going to get you high. If you don't like this, if if it isn't an incredible experience, we'll go get some drugs. And of course, I'm not going to get them drugs, but I would say that, right? So they go, all right, I'll take that deal, right? So they'd lay down, and I go, you have to do what I say, though. You have to push through the discomfort. It's going to get weird. And here's the thing: alcoholics and addicts, they don't care if it's uncomfortable, if it's weird. If it starts to make them feel, it does put you in a bit of an altered state. And if it starts to make them feel that, they're in. They're like, I my joke was in a class, I could always see who the alcoholics and addicts were in the room because they're trying to suck all the air out of the room. They're breathing 10 times harder than everybody else in the room because once they start feeling something, feeling weird, they're into it. Whereas regular people are like, oh, I feel weird. I want to slow this down or back off, or I don't like it. And so I could spot the addicts around the room going twice as hard. And then, so I do this session with them, and then they'd come up and they'd sit up afterwards. And I do this cool stuff after the breathing where I have you reach out and pull moments into your heart. So I'll say, put an arm in the air and find a moment where you felt grateful for something or someone. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? What are you grateful for in this moment? Who are you grateful for in this moment? Step into it. And I would, and then pull it down to your heart. And so you can hear the emotion in my voice. It's like, I'm so grateful that I get to do this thing. So I'm leading people through it, these moments of gratitude, of love, of all this incredible stuff. And I'm feeling it myself. I'm going through it with them. So I do that with people after the breath work. And it's a really special thing that I've added in there that I kind of picked up from Tony Robbins. I adapted it from a technique that he uses, and I tweaked it. And, so I do these sessions with people who are flipping out, and then they'd sit up afterwards, and they would be a different person. Their energy's different. They're different. They look different in the eyes. They're calm, and they go, oh, wow, that wasn't really what I thought it was going to be at all. I'm like, oh, my God, who is this person? This person doesn't sound the same. They don't look the same. I'm meeting this person for the first time. There's a different person now in the room with me. And it's a trip. It's kind of, I've worked with schizophrenics. It's kind of like that. Like they've got a whole nother personality. Well, that's multiple personality. That's not schizophrenia, but it's like another person shows up, and in a good way, in a really good way, like this calm, because they've turned off all the noise in their head that's telling, I need to go get high. I'm too uncomfortable with whatever it is I'm feeling. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Is like, I can't sit with the discomfort in my body, in my mind right now, and I need something to take me out of that discomfort, whether that something is alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's food or sex or TV or the gym. It's like, I can't just sit and allow the feelings to be what they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when we could learn how to do that, and people say that meditation is great for that, but I think seated meditation is a really advanced thing, especially for an addict or an alcoholic. They have a hard time sitting still. So breath work is really great for that, because you can lay down on your back, and I was a trainer, so I approached it like it was a workout. Okay, I'm going to lay down on my back, and I'm going to breathe in through my mouth as big as I can into my belly. And if anybody's listening to this, please, in the car, please don't start doing this in your car. It's very dangerous when you're in your car. You need to be at home, laying down. And so, I would just say, like, okay, we're going to just lay down and do this technique. And so I took all the woo-woo-ness out of it, the new aginess out of it, and I just looked at it like a breathing technique. But there is something magical that happens there. I can't deny that. And that is transformative. And I've had connections, which, I'm not religious, but someone might call them spiritual connections. And I don't usually talk about that, because I think that that's really personal to each person. Everybody's got their own belief in what they feel and what takes it in. But I had a gangbanger come up to me one time after a class, and he said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And pulled me aside, and he was like looking around, and he said, "Man, I felt the presence of like God or something like that when I did that. Is that normal?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody." And that guy came like on a regular basis and changed his life.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to get choked up just talking about it. I mean, it's just the things that I've seen, the people, that I've seen transform in front of my eyes. We're walking, so many people are walking around and thinking that they're just not enough. They're just not whole. Like we talked about, I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the biggest celebrities on the planet. and some of the most successful people on the planet, and they all suffer from I'm not enough. In fact, a lot of them suffer from it more than your average person. That's what drives them to be so successful. Because when I get this Oscar, when I get this gold medal, when I get this Grammy, when I make $1 billion, I will finally have reached this thing and I will be enough. And when they get there, they're not. It doesn't work because there's nothing you're going to get from the outside that's going to make you enough on the inside. There's just no thing, that's going to do that from the outside in. So once they realize that, or they don't usually realize it, what happens is they get the thing and they get really depressed afterwards. There's studies out there. The research shows that, gold medal winners or Olympic medal winners, they get depressed after they get the medal because
Mm-hmm.
they've been working towards this thing their whole life. And okay, now what? Do I just train again for the next Olympics? And they age out of the Olympics, and then people who get the Oscar and different things like that. So I usually work with people after they've hit some pinnacle of success, and then they're really, depressed, or they start using drugs and alcohol because it's just that nothing's working for them. And now they're isolated from everyone around them in some way because they don't feel like they can trust people. So this breathwork thing is really incredible, that it makes you realize that like you are enough, that you don't really need anything else. You don't need anything more. It's great if you want to like work on some things, like you want to build some things and you want to create some things. It's a great tool to do that. I've used it in that way, but I can just lay on the floor and breathe and just know that right now, right where I'm at, my life is perfect. And that I just need to be grateful. I don't need to be the biggest breathwork teacher on the planet. It would be nice. I would love that. That would be great. But like, that's not going to fix me. There's not any better moment that I'm going to have than this moment right now. And so just starting to come to that truth, that realization is pretty powerful. And I wouldn't have found it any other way. I don't think I couldn't have found it any other way. And I worked with all these big successful people. I don't know who said it. But I heard someone say it's like everybody knows that money won't fix them, but they want to find out for themselves.
Yeah, right? Well, it's a lot more fun to be depressed with money than depressed without money.
It's
So
true.
I can tell you that. Um, so as you were working with these people, keeping them sober, helping them to stay sober and doing the breath work,
Mhm.
what kind of like percentage increase in success did you see? Like were you like, this is like absolutely 100% creating way more success for people to stay sober if they do this breath work? Like, were you able to see measurable, noticeable, like with every single person you worked with, that people could stay sober because this breath work had them do that break state and get out of that frenzy and get back in their body and start being able to process the emotions and almost like cleanse their body in a sense and have that reset?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw people getting sober around it because of it. I'm a big advocate. I don't want to. I want to make this clear. I'm a big advocate of 12-step programs. I think that they work. I've seen them work. It's how I got, sober originally, and so 12-step programs, recovery programs, I think they work really well. So I think that that's the foundation, and then breath work is a great adjunct to that. I don't think breathwork is the foundation to getting sober. I think recovery 12-step programs are the foundation because they've worked for 75 years. And usually, when someone tells me like, oh, I tried that, it didn't work, I'll ask them a few questions, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And the answer is no. Because if you'd done those things, you would have stayed sober, right? So, I'm a big proponent of those. But yeah, I would see people, they're starting to put it in a lot of rehabs, a lot of recovery centers now. They're starting to put breath work in there because they need anything they can. Because the truth is that like these recovery centers, they're just drying people out. And then they're hopefully, getting them to go to 12-step into recovery meetings. But they don't really have many things. They're having a lot of success with breathwork. They're having a lot of success now with EMDR. and some other therapies. They're looking for anything they can to help people,
Mm-hmm.
get sober. And so um, it's hard to measure results. It's hard to measure success, because if somebody, what happens, I found, unfortunately, with people, whether it's with recovery, whether it's with your fitness and your health, um, people get the results that they want and then they get lazy, right? And they stop doing the things that got them there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so we fall off of the fitness routine. We fall off of the things that got us sober and helped us in recovery. We stop doing those things, and then it's only a matter of time before we relapse into whatever our thing is. Um, and I've been, I did breath work in the beginning every day for a year, and it changed my life. I don't do it that much now, but I don't need it that much now. I do it kind of as needed. Um, and so I don't need it as much now as I did before. And I do different techniques and different stuff, but I like to do a big session once a week. And if I have something going on in my life, something heavy, um, something happens, I lose somebody close to me, you can be darn sure I'm going to lay down on the ground and I'm going to do some breath work right then and there. Um, so I can start to move those emotions through me so that
Mm.
they don't stay stuck, because that's what it is. It's about stuck emotions and trapped traumas and all that kind of stuff. So many people don't realize that trauma is passed down through the DNA. So they have studies that show this now, that mothers that were pregnant at 9/11, the babies were born with higher cortisol levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have studies that show um, they did this thing on the mice where they sprayed cherry blossom spray and then they electrocuted it, and then they sprayed the cherry blossom spray and they electrocuted it, and then they just spray the spray and it would have a reaction, and then those mice would have babies and they never got electrocuted, but they spray the cherry blossom spray and they'd have a reaction to it that other mice that didn't have that weren't shocked didn't have, and that lasted up to 14 generations.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these books out there now, like The Body Keeps the Score, and It Didn't Start With You. And so a lot of people don't even know what they come in and they breathe and they realize all this stuff comes up and comes out. And it's like, maybe it's not even your stuff. Maybe it was your mother's stuff. And it didn't, your mother was depressed when she was pregnant with you because there was something difficult going on in the household. Or, I had someone that I worked with very closely who the mother had lost a previous child in a
Mm.
really tragic way, and then she was pregnant with him. So she was suffering. She was grieving that loss of that previous baby child. It kind of went into it fell into the water and it drowned. It's just terrible.
Mm.
Yeah, it was just heartbreaking. He tells me the story of his brother that he never met, and so his mother was depressed and grieving while she was pregnant with him. So that
Mm-hmm.
goes right into the baby, and that baby's born into the world, and then they come out into a world where there's still grief in that household. They're
Mm.
probably happy that the new baby's there, but so that's in us. And so when this person started breathing, he was just breathing out all that grief, all that sadness, all that heartbreak. I mean, I don't know if you can be on this planet and not have disappointment, not have heartbreak, not have grief. I don't think it's possible. So we all have it. So why are we acting like we're all fine all the time? We all have this stuff, right? We all, right? So I say, yeah, my class, like everyone in this room has heartbreak and sadness and disappointment and grief. Like, why are we pretending like we're fine? So like, allow all that to feel that, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can feel what's on the other side of that, which is gratitude and love and joy and all the beauty. Because if you're denying those feelings, then you can't allow all the other good feelings in. My capacity to feel love and gratitude is in direct proportion to my capacity to feel grief and sadness.
Mm.
So if I want to feel massive love and massive gratitude inside of my life, inside of my heart, I have to allow all the other stuff. And so you can't shut yourself off from the disappointment and the heartbreak and the sadness and then open yourself up to love and gratitude. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Right? So you got to make a choice. How do you want to live?
I want to open up all the doors and feel everything. I want to feel everything, but not like you said. Don't let it get stuck.
Yeah, well, that's the
Let it
thing too.
move.
People start to feel it. They start to feel sad, or grief or whatever, and they back off. They can't handle it, and they back off. So they start to feel grief and they start to feel sadness, and then they back off, because it's uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, but if you just allowed it to come through you, it would pass through, and it's a few minutes. It's not going to last forever. I learned that lesson when I was going through a heartbreak of a relationship that ended. And my buddy's like, well, what are you feeling? And I said, I'm just feeling sad and disappointed and lonely and all these things. And he said, well, go sit there and just feel it. Just sit there and feel that. And I did. I just sat there and felt it. And then it would lasted like, I don't know, 15 minutes. And then I was like, okay, so I guess I'll just go make a sandwich now, because it was like, where I was fighting so hard to not feel those things and to look for any way around them. And, I see that with people to look for any solution and to not just allow the feelings to be what they are. And I used to say that feelings aren't facts and a feeling won't kill you, but I don't say that anymore because unchecked feelings will kill you. If you get a loop, you can get a loop inside of your brain that tells you that, I'm not loved, nobody loves me, and I'm not enough, and the this planet would be better off without me. And you can get that loop going around and around in your head, and you start to believe it, and you could take your own life. And I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a scary thing to know that your brain can give you bad information. Robin
Mm-hmm.
Williams' brain was giving him bad information. It's
Right.
it's it's a scary idea that, like, wow, our brain can sometimes not be our friend. It's there to protect us, but sometimes it can get on a loop and start giving us bad information. So if you have those kind of feelings, go share them with somebody that you love and trust, that cares about you, because it's just not true.
You brought up a really good point that those who are committing suicide feel like the world would be better without them, and that their
Uh-huh.
family and the people that they love would actually be better and happier without them. A friend of mine went through this where her brain was telling her this, that she really believed that her family would not miss her, would not feel sad, and that everyone would be better if she didn't exist.
Yeah,
And
it's such a
that's
weird lie. Like, why would your
right.
brain do that to you? Why would your brain lie to you in that way? So your brain isn't always telling you the truth, but it's
Mm.
really good at convincing you that it is.
There was a beautiful interview that was posted on Facebook, and it's been shared around a bunch, with a man who survived jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, I've
I
seen it.
bawled my eyes out. I keep trying to reach out to him, and I've messaged him to get on the show because I think his story is beautiful. But he says that, and he's now dedicated his life to helping people prevent suicide. And he said that every single person he's ever spoken to, a lot of people who have attempted suicide and survived, every single one of them he's spoken to says that they immediately regretted, like if they jumped or, overdosed or whatever they chose to do, that they immediately regretted it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm reading Malcolm Gladwell's new book. I think it's called Talking to Strangers. And he has this whole chapter dedicated to suicide. And what they thought was, if we prevent the way that people commit suicide, if we put a net underneath the bridge, people are just going to go find another way to do it. And it's actually not true. That it's actually coupled with something else. So it, if they can't do it, if they can't do it that way at that moment, because there's something going on at that moment, then they go off and they do something else, and then it passes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the easy access to ways to do it that lead to more suicides. There's studies, and he has all these studies in his book. Malcolm Gladwell is amazing. So for years they didn't want to put net on like a net underneath the Golden Gate Bridge because they didn't want to change the look of it. But once they did, boom, the suicides just dropped. You know,
Mm.
and so there's a study in England where they had the gas in the stoves, and people were putting their heads in the stove and killing themselves that way. And then they changed the gas, and the suicides just dropped.
Helping to make it less convenient. So then, like you
Yes.
said, the depression passes, the moment passes. And if we can teach our children to have that emotional intelligence, that they call it emotional quotient, where we're able
Yeah.
to wait a certain amount of time because they know no matter how, whatever we're going through right now, it will shift, it will get better. And to breathe and to use
Yeah.
your, you're going to teach us some breathing and to
Right. There's a
breathe.
saying in recovery, this too shall pass. And it's like, whatever you're going through,
Hmm.
however, how hard it is, whatever is going on, it will pass if you could just hang in there. Maybe you pick up the phone, maybe you go talk to someone, go see a friend. It will pass, you know.
Hmm.
And it's like, you know, you have a breathing pattern for when you are depressed. You have a breathing pattern for when you're angry. You have a breathing pattern for when you're anxious. And if you can change your breathing pattern when you're feeling those emotions, then you can change the emotion. And if you can
Yes.
change your emotion, then you can change your life. Because, like you were saying, you know, people with emotional intelligence, people with better control of their emotions, are very successful in life. They're more successful in their relationships and their work and their business and their life and their friendships, every area of their life, than people with high IQs. You know, we used to think like, oh, this person's a genius, they're going to be very successful. But that's just not the case. The studies actually prove out that people who are more emotionally well adapted are more successful than people with higher IQs. Um, be-
Mm.
because we're living in a planet it's about relationships with people, and you know, it's hard to be around people that are, you know, emotionally unstable. I know, I've worked with them for 20 years. So it's really challenging work. And so, you know, teaching people how to manage their emotions, you know, through their breath is a key thing. If you can just start to breathe in a different way, and it's that moment where they're like, oh, okay, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm this. Let me just try something different, instead of like choosing to be stuck in this thing. Nobody wants to be stuck. Nobody wants to be depressed. Nobody wants to be angry. Nobody wants to be a drug addict. Nobody wants to live on the street and try and find drugs. They're not choosing that. They're stuck in this cycle and they can't get out of it. So, you know, just trying to find that moment of the window of opportunity where, you know, here's a moment where someone's trying to help you, and or you're going to reach out and ask for help. You know, I sometimes say in my classes, like, stop waiting for somebody to show up and put their hand on your head and heal you, because it's just not going to happen. You have to do it. You have to take responsibility for your own healing, for your own life, and take action around it. And every time I take an action, my life changes. Every time I do something I don't want to do, every time I do something that makes me a little uncomfortable, I grow, I change. And so if I can just do something small every day, some small action every day, then I'm transforming, I'm changing. And if you do that, they found that, like, that's it. Like the people who have these, like, you know, they change their lives, they transform their lives, it's through small little actions over and over consistently. You know, just showing up to the gym and doing a couple exercises, you know,
Hmm.
it's just starting the thing. Be a good starter, you know, have smart feet, whatever it is, just show up and do it. I had to, you know, after a while of doing breath work, it got kind of old for me. So I had to find new ways. And I started listening to motivational speakers that I liked while I was breathing. And then, and then what was incredible about that was I didn't realize it was seeping into my subconscious and into who I am, all that
Hmm.
stuff. And then it started coming out of me in my classes, right?
Nice.
And so I became this Tony Robbins of breathwork. I started saying all this stuff in the breathwork classes, which nobody did before. And it changed how I taught breathwork. Um, so just constantly showing up, you don't know how, you know, you're going to transform who you are and what you do, and then how that's going to transform other people.
I love it. I like that you pointed out that we breathe differently depending on what state we're in.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming. And you were
Oh, I
talking
love
about,
NLP.
right, you were talking about anchoring,
Yep.
the idea of being able to get someone in a state when they're in an
Yep.
acute state. So you get them to get that into the state of gratitude, and then you have them anchor it into their heart. And
Yes.
that becomes part of their new neurological strategy to go
Yep.
there. And that you pointed out that we physiologically, we actually have anchors in our physiology. So if you sit hunched over and you frown and you just sit there kind of hunched over and you breathe sort of shallow, however you would if you were depressed and sitting, hunched over and frowning with your head kind of tilted downward, and breathe shallow, notice the state your body goes in versus if you just pull your shoulders back, put your head
Hmm.
up, open your eyes, look up towards, up in a 45-degree angle and smile and pull your
Yes.
shoulders back and just hold that and breathe like the openly. You've opened the chest up and you
Yeah, you're
breathe.
protecting your heart when you're doing
Right.
that. When you're curling over, you're protecting your heart, and then your breath gets really shallow, or you're holding your breath. I mean, most people are walking around not breathing all the way down into their belly, into their diaphragm. They're breathing very shallow in their chest and holding their breath all the time, and that's why they're feeling stressed and anxious and depressed. So
Hmm.
just breathing in through your nose down into your belly is a game changer for most people. But
Right.
yeah, you're saying open, bring it in the physiology in your body, and I'm a big believer in that. Like, you start to feel the emotion. I teach affirmations in my teacher trainings, and I've done affirmation workshops, and I said, listen, you can't just sit there hunched over and be like, I'm happy, whole, and worthy of love, or I'm happy, it's like, it doesn't, it's your body, your brain goes, BS, that's BS. It doesn't feel it. So you got to get up. And I would have people like pound on their chest and open their chest and hold their head up high and pound on, say, I'm happy, whole, and worthy of love. And we go through each word. I am happy, whole. I am. And that's the day 2 in the 5-day detox, is that affirmation technique. That's incredible. And then I have them throw their arms up in the air and scream, I love my life. And like, if you do that, you even if you don't love your life, it will start to shift you. It shifts the emotion. And if you can just shift your emotion a little bit and break yourself out of that pattern,
Hmm.
you're in a bad pattern, right? It's just breaking yourself out of that pattern. What's interesting is when I was telling you about, so anchoring those moments, like reaching out and pulling those moments into my heart. For me, I have little children that I love more than anything on this planet, and I would pull in these moments of, with my daughter or with my son, and it's incredible. And now what's happened to me from doing that so much over the last, bunch of years is like, I'll be in a moment with my daughter or my son, and I'll go, I'm in a moment right now. Like, I'm having the moment within the moment while it's happening. And it's just, I just get, it's just such a beautiful thing. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm just present in it. And then I'm going, wow, this is it. Like, I'm more present in this moment than I've ever been. Than maybe I wouldn't have been had I not done that the last, 10 years or whatever.
Mm. Just by shifting our physiology and not even like, let's say we're in a neutral emotion, just by shifting, for example, like hunching over and breathing in that shallow way and frowning, we can create sadness. We can
Yep.
actually access sadness. But I think we walk around feeling like our emotions run the bus, that our emotions control us, our emotions drive the bus. People go, oh, I'm just not motivated to do this. Well, who's running you? Who is
Yep.
running your life? And we're letting our emotions run our life, but our emotions are actually anchored to our physiological state. So when we hunch over, we create sadness because it's an anchor. It's attached to that physiology. So we might have been kind of in a good mood, but we can access sadness simply by recreating the physiology of sadness. And when we pull our shoulders back and smile, even if we don't feel like smiling, smile, pull your shoulders back and lift your head up and breathe fully openly for a few minutes, even 30 seconds, all of a sudden you're noticing your state shifts into a state that is more fulfilled, more motivated. And so
Yeah.
just by changing our physiology, we can shift our state. And then with your breath work, we're changing your physiology a lot, and we're moving through those emotions. But I love that you're teaching to not push them down, to not
Yeah.
repress the emotions. When we look at violent crimes in the United States, and I'm sure around the world, unfortunately, the sad statistic is that most violent crimes are done by men. I'm not saying that no violent crimes are done by women. I'm just saying the majority are done by men, and it's what is going on in that. How have we raised our boys in the last 70 years? How have we raised, what have we taught our boys that we have most of the violent crimes committed by men? What it's like, it's something really crazy, like 96%. It's I was reading the latest statistics on violent crimes, and what have we taught our men? What have we taught our boys? And since I have a 4.5-year-old son, I want to raise him to be like respectful of men and women, respectful of his own body, respectful of others, and emotionally intelligent, right? And so what's going on, that men are committing violent crimes. And if they were in touch with their emotions and actually felt them instead of suppressed them, and
Right.
reacted, like having some kind of altercation at a stoplight, and just reacted and started punching each other, right? Like, what if they could feel their emotions and realize, oh wow, that came from all the hurt I had as a child with my dad or with my uncle, or what if we processed or moved through our emotions? I think that your breath work is even more important for men. I mean, of course, women will gain benefit from it. I think it's even more important for men
Well,
to do it, because we need to create a healthy, a society where men are emotionally healthy.
yeah. I mean, listen, I have a lot of personal experience with it. I've been probably in over 100 fights in my life. And, I was stabbed in the head when
Oh
I
my
was 19,
gosh.
19 and lost half the blood in my body and almost died. I've been jumped by 5 guys at once and beaten unconscious. I've had a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of violent stuff happen to me. And the message that I got was that I'm not safe in the world. Um,
Mm,
and then what started happening to me is that I needed to react before I was attacked, because I had been jumped so many times, I'd been attacked so many times, that if somebody threatened me, then I needed to react first. That was what started happening to me, right? Um, but I think it goes back to something earlier that you and I were talking about, which is, we tell our boys that to be strong, to be men, and they repress all these emotions, and there's nowhere for that emotion to go. So it's repressed emotions. It's also a feeling of powerlessness. I think that violence is a power thing. Um, and men are filled with testosterone, but if you teach compassion, it's pretty hard to be a compassionate person and want to go beat somebody up. You know what I mean? If you get at the stoplight and this person does something wrong, and then if you're a compassion, if you practice compassion and you know what that feels like, then you go like, this person's probably having a really bad day right now. Instead of going like, how I can't let them do that to me. I cannot let that guy get away with that. That I cannot let that stand. I mean, that's what that feels like when two guys get out of a car. You've crossed a line, and I'm not going to allow it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what that feels like. I've been on the other side of that, and it's a awful way to live your life. It's an awful way to live. Um, and to be going around angry, it's almost like it's like two people are just, they're magnets just looking for each other to bump up against, to express this frustration that's inside of them. Um, and when they find each other, that's what they want. Believe it or not, they want that.
That altercation.
Yeah, if two guys, I'm not talking about a violent crime where some guy commits a violent crime against a woman. That's that's a sickness. That's a power thing. That's some I think a lot of that comes from frustration, from sexual frustration. Um, and that's a whole other topic that I don't think I would talk skillfully on. It's not my area. Um, I love women. I think women are the most amazing creatures on the planet. I don't understand them as much as I would like to. I've spent 47 years trying to understand them. I think I understand them better than most men. But men are really simple. We have really simple needs. We're like food and sleep and sex. That's it. if
And
you
breathing.
right, and breathing to, like, clear out the testosterone or the frustration and the emotion. So that's it. But women have a whole set of, like, needs and motivations that I can't begin to understand, and I don't think that they understand it all the time either themselves. you know so but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that too is the frustration that people are feeling from social media, where
Mm,
you know, so and so has this incredible life, which isn't true, which is a lie. People are only showing the good stuff. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. I post all these great videos of my kids and me. I don't post the videos of their meltdowns. I did, I did post a video where I wasn't going to do it, and then I did it, and I regretted it. But I, 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 I hid their Halloween candy on them, and I did the Jimmy Kimmel thing, right, where you hide the Halloween candy. And you're like, I ate all your candy, and they both started crying. And then I was like, I'm just kidding, and here's the candy, and it was like 32 seconds, right? And I posted it on my social media, and people just, most anyone who knew me, who really knows me, was like, oh, that's hilarious. And they know that my kids are my entire world, and that I love my kids more than anything on this planet. And it was 30 seconds. But people who didn't know me, I have kind of a big social media following, were like, oh, that's awful, and that's not compassionate. And I was just like, oh. Um, so I deleted it, and it made me feel lousy.
mm,
And I was like, wow, I'm allowing these people who don't really know me to criticize me, and I'm letting that criticism in.
yep.
Brene Brown, who I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, Brene Brown talks about that if you really social media, you really only allow the criticism of people that are in your inner circle, that know you really, really well.
Right, right.
And you're five people in your mastermind, in your inner circle, and all the other people on the outside that don't know you, just you can't allow that criticism in. And I know that, and it still bothered me a little bit, and because people are really good at digs. um, it's it, I mean, I'm human, and the best I'm going to do is human. And so things get to me sometimes, things bother me, and so I love social media. I think it's a great tool. Like, I get to see some of my family that I don't get to see very often, on the East Coast, and it brings people to my classes and my teacher trainings and my workshops, and I've found amazing people and podcasts that I follow through social media. So I think it's an incredible tool, but I also think it can be really harmful if we're really allowing it to, like, if we're believing it all. Like, nobody has a perfect life like that. They're just showing the perfect shot, and
Right.
so yeah, if I'm comparing my insides to other people's outsides on social media, I'm going to lose every time.
I was just reading Proverbs 27 today, and I brought it up because what you said reminded me. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. So
Mm.
wounds from a friend can be trusted, meaning, like, speak honestly to our friends and the inner circle, and take that criticism with heart, because they're doing it in a way that's loving, and they care about us.
And they know you.
And yeah.
They know you, and they know what you need to hear,
Hmm.
right?
And then later on in Proverbs it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
Hmm.
And I love that idea that we're sharpening each other. Take the criticism from your close friends with love, and know that we're sharpening each other.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about the emotional component, which is great. I'd like to get a little bit into the biological component. Something interesting about the Krebs cycle: our body produces ATP, which is cellular energy, but in a state of lack of oxygen, the body cannot continue to produce a bounty of ATP, and instead, a byproduct becomes lactic acid. And
Hmm.
lactic acidosis, I've had an expert on the show talk about that all disease, all 100% of disease has elevated levels of lactic acidosis, and he feels that all disease begins with this break in the Krebs cycle where we're, instead of being in an oxygenated state, we're producing too much lactic acid. And that if we all got back to the root, if we all were fully oxygenated, that
Hmm.
we could stay in an alkaline balanced state, that we would then not produce a lactic acid or get into lactic acidosis, and therefore prevent disease. And he believes, I mean, he goes as far as to say all disease. What have you seen, or because this has been sort of your biggest passion, right? What have you seen around disease? Have you seen people reverse disease? Have you seen, what kind of things have you seen actually physiologically shift when they began to do this deep breath work on a regular basis?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people have physical ailments and come in with physical ailments and say, my back has, been bothering me for 20 years and it's gone. And I've seen people, this guy had this throat thing going on and it cleared up in one session, and just all these kind of things. I would love to have somebody do some studies on, the alkalinity in the body before breath work and then after breath work. That would be amazing. I mean, I know you're oxygenating the body, but you're throwing off CO2, right? And so that
Mm-hmm.
causes some stuff to go on there. When I first started breath work, when people's hands would clamp up, it never happened to me, but I saw it happen to a ton of people that I worked with. It's called tetany. And people would ask me, like, what causes that? And the answer that I would get from all my breathwork teachers and the people that I studied with was like crazy answers, like, oh, it's you're holding on to stuff, or it's the moon, or you're detoxing off marijuana. And I was like, that's not what it is, and I just couldn't take that for an answer. And what I did, as someone who's very curious from a scientific standpoint, is I started just studying commonalities. Like, okay, who in the room is cramping up in their hands? Okay, these 20 people out of 60. Okay, what are they doing that the other people aren't doing? Oh, well, they're breathing a little harder. They're actually breathing louder, and they're pushing the exhale more. So I brought in this woman who was a student of mine, Tanya Bentley, and she's a health and science researcher who went to Harvard. And we started looking at it, and she started diving into the studies. And my theory is that when people push the exhale extra hard, that it got worse. And I was correct. When I teach it, I try to teach people to really inhale, take the biggest, deepest inhale they can into their belly, and then take another inhale into their chest, and then let the exhale just snap loose. You just get free, just to kind of relax it. For some reason, a lot of people think that if you have to work on the inhale, you have to work on the exhale. And you don't. You work on the inhale, and then you let the exhale just relax and be like a reflex almost.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I've had people who were cramping up in their hands having this tetany, and then I've coached them through that, and then it goes away through relaxing the exhale, which is incredible. I've seen, people just heal their bodies because of so much of our physical ailments are emotional. I mean, some people try to argue that it's all
Mm.
emotional. It all comes from emotion. And then you'll hear the other argument, well, what if I got hit by a car, then, and I broke my arm? That would be, from emotion. But, you know, I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't have all the answers. But so much of nobody doubts in this world that we're living in today that stress, for example, is causing heart disease and cancer and all kinds of heart problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're stressing ourselves out so much, I stressed myself out so much that I gave myself an autoimmune disorder. I gave myself alopecia, which is sudden hair loss, and I lost all my hair. And so if I can stress myself out to the point where my body starts to fight against itself and starts to kill my hair follicles off because it thinks it's a foreign invader, then maybe I can do the opposite. Maybe I can start to love myself enough and heal my body. Because everybody knows that you can stress yourself out and cause health problems. So if that's true and people believe that, why don't they believe that the opposite is true?
Well, they don't know how to decrease the stress. It's like it's so part of ingrained in their life. Like how do you not get stressed about your bills? Like how do you not get stressed about your kids doing stupid stuff? And I mean it's part of your life. You can't separate yourself from your bills and your job and your kids and your husband and the stress. So we know intellectually that our stress is killing us, but what can we do about it besides take a bubble bath, which just helps for a few minutes, right? So
Yeah.
you
I joke in my classes, I say that, self-love, self-care isn't taking a bubble bath. It can be later, but self-love, self-care is showing up and doing the hard work, doing the uncomfortable work. That's
Mm,
what real self-love, real self-care is. So if you do that, and if you lay down, listen, you can be stressed out, your kid can have a health problem, your bills can be overdue, and you can lay down and breathe, and then you'll come up and you'll go, you know what? It's all going to be fine. It's going to work out.
yes.
It's going to work out. It's going to work out just fine. But instead, we dig into that stress. And what is stress really but fear? That's what it really is. Stress is just a fancy word for fear. So you're allowing your fears to consume you and affect you and affect your health. And what's the opposite of fear? The opposite of fear is love. So if we can get more into love and start to love yourself more, and maybe you can start to combat those fears and let go of some of those fears and know that it's going to be okay, because
Mm,
99% of it is all in our heads. That's the truth of it. I mean, that's
right.
what nobody's saying. It's like, Mark Twain, I think it was Mark Twain that said, I had a lot of problems, some of them actually happened. And it's like most of that stuff that you're stressing out about, the bills and our kids, it all works itself out. It always does.
Yes.
And so you're creating this all in your head. You're creating these problems in your head,
Yep.
right? We're like right now, you might have a bunch of stuff going on, a bunch of issues, problems, whatever you want to call them, but there is no issue right now. There's just you and I talking right now. That's all there is.
Mhm.
So if in order to get to that issue, you have to go into your head and start to think about it and start to worry about it and start to ruminate on it. And then you start to go, oh no, how am I going to pay the bills? And my son's got this just saying that, my chest gets tight and I stop breathing,
Mm.
right? But if I just stop and sit back and take a deep breath in through my nose, down into my belly, put my hand right below my belly button, and take a big breath in through my nose down there. And then I let out a long exhale, twice as long, out of my mouth. Let me do another one of those. In through my nose, down into my stomach, way below my belly button. And let out a sigh. That long exhale, that breath in through your nose, down into your diaphragm, and then that twice as long exhale, that actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and
Mhm.
digest. And it starts to calm you down. It starts to calm your body down. So that saying, like, take a breath, like, we hear it, but we don't do it. You know?
It's more like
Yeah. We're like, do you take a breath? I'm not going to take a breath. You,
oh man, I've told my husband to breathe and it's just like it's like a
yeah.
shallow breath and I'm like, "No, I mean really, like come on, deep breathe through your belly." And he's like, "Okay." I'm like, "Ah." I've seen that where people just they're still breathing shallow. Can you
I
teach
couldn't
us?
breathe into my belly. Yeah, I couldn't breathe into my belly when I first started because I was a trainer and I had been working on my abs and I had kept my stomach flat for 20 years. So when I would try and breathe into my belly laying on the floor, I would arch my back and my back was so sore for the first couple of weeks of breath work because I couldn't actually breathe into my diaphragm. I couldn't actually expand my diaphragm. And eventually I was able to relax and breathe into my belly, but it took a while. It, it it's incredible once you can do it. You want me to teach you the
Y-
breathing technique or
Yeah, teach us. We are your Play-Doh. Mold us.
well, okay, so I can give you the technique. The challenge lies in that it needs to be, I would say, you can get benefits in 15 minutes, but usually the 12 minutes of it are the first 12 minutes are the hardest part. So a lot of people
Mm.
will do like 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes and be like, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. This is weird, and stop. And so if you just did 12 minutes of it, it would be awful. It would be the most awful thing you've ever did. So because you have to break through, right?
Mm.
You have to break through on the other side. I can tell you how to do it, and then you can go do it on your own, and you can just make a playlist. I also have some guided iTunes CDs. So I have like a couple CDs. If you go into the iTunes store, not Apple Music, if you go into the iTunes store, I have two CDs on iTunes that have different length tracks, and I guide you through how to do it. But the technique is really simple. It's in through the mouth, down into the belly, and you take the biggest breath you can into the belly. And then you take another breath on top of that in your chest, and then you just let it fall out. And then you start again. Belly, chest, and then the exhale is just a half a second. It just falls out, and you keep that going, circular. Again, don't do this in the car, right? So
I'm already dizzy. I took 2 breaths. I'm already dizzy.
yeah, and so it passes. If you lay down on the floor and you did it, and we did it, that dizziness would pass. But your brain is going to go, I'm dizzy. I'm going to pass out. When I do my classes, I demonstrate like, oh my God, am I doing this right? 2 breaths in, 1 breath out. I think I messed it up already. Okay, I'm terrible at this, right? And then, oh, I'm doing it. I'm dizzy already. I'm going to pass out. I think I'm going to pass. You're not going to pass out. You're on the floor. You're fine. Even if you did pass out, you would be fine, right? So you got to push through that fear that you're going to pass out. Okay, I'm breathing. Okay. Whoa. Who's crying already? What's going on in their life? Oh, that's me crying already. What's going on in my life? Right. So like we don't, it's incredible what your head says to you and tries to talk you out of it and tries to get you to stop doing it. Um, and you just have to push through. You have to be willing to push through. You have to be willing to show up for yourself and do something a little uncomfortable, something a little different. If you do what you always do, you'll always have what you've always had, right? You have to do,
Mm-hmm.
if you want something different, you have to try new things. You have to try different things. I thought breathwork was the stupidest thing. Like I'm going to go to a thing and someone's going to show me how to breathe and all this. What's going to happen? That doesn't make any sense. I know how to breathe. I've been breathing my whole life, right? That's what everyone says. That's a stupid thing I hear from people all the time. Like, dude, I'm going to breathe my whole life. You're going to show me how to breathe. And then, finally, when they're in enough pain, they'll show up because people aren't motivated until they're in enough pain some way
Yeah.
in some area. And then they show up because they're willing to try new things. They're willing to try anything. If you get in enough pain, you'll try whatever. So unfortunately, pain is the motivator for most people. Until you start to like, for me, when that cracked me open, I went, okay, what else is out there? And started just going down a rabbit hole of exploring all kinds of stuff and all kinds of modalities out there and trying it all. And, what I added what worked to my trainings and what didn't, I just left, let it fall away. Um, so, be willing to be an explorer, a scientist within yourself, within your life, within your body.
Is there any contraindications of doing this, or I mean, could it be dangerous to breathe this much?
Yeah, there are some contraindications, and some of them are like, high blood pressure, glaucoma, certain mental illnesses are not recommended. So,
Which
uh,
ones?
Um, you know, I would have to go look it up off the top of my head because I'm on the spot right now. I don't have it all memorized. But here's the thing. So I've had people with all the mental illnesses that are on my contraindications, and they're fine. Like I've had them come to my classes, I've had them come through my trainings, but you just never know. You just never know what somebody is going to react to. Um,
Mm,
and so, and we unfortunately we live in this litigious society, and people want to sue for everything now, right? And so you have to be extra
yeah.
careful. Like pregnancy is a big contraindication, and um, because miscarriages happen. But what do we teach women to do in Lamaze class, right?
Breathe.
Breathe, right? Deep breathing, right? For the most painful thing you're ever going to go through. They say when women have a baby, it's almost the pain that a man feels when he has a cold. Um, but it's the most painful thing you're ever going to go through is, having a childbirth. That's what they say, right? So, we do deep breathing, and I believe Lamaze is through the mouth, right? So here, let me read some of the contraindications for you. Persons with history of cardiovascular disease, including angina or heart attack, high blood pressure, glaucoma, retinal detachment, osteoporosis. I don't understand the osteoporosis one. Significant recent physical injuries or surgery, which is anything, right? You don't want to be doing anything when you just had surgery, really.
Right.
Uh, Breathwork is not advised for persons with severe mental illness or seizure disorders, or for persons using major medications, which is most of the planet. It is also unsuitable for anyone with a personal family history of aneurysms. Pregnant women are advised against practicing breathwork without first consulting and getting approval from their primary care physician. Persons with asthma should bring their inhaler or consult a primary care physician. So, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many women have been in my classes, and I've seen a hand go up while they're like 3 songs into the breath work, and I go, yes, and they go, is this okay to do when you're pregnant? And I'm like, don't you think you should have asked that before you came to the class? Because they thought it was going to be some like relaxing meditation thing, and it's not. It's
Right.
a workout. It's a workout. But like I tell everybody in my classes, you've all done something harder in your life than lay on the floor on your back and breathe. Come on. A hike is harder than laying on your floor and back on your back and breathe. It's just, it freaks people out because it catches you unexpected. Like you're just not prepared that all this wild stuff is going to happen to you physically, mentally, and emotionally from laying on the floor and breathing. So because you're not prepared for it, it just freaks people out, right? So my job as a facilitator, as a teacher, is to prepare people as best I can. And so that they can push through that stuff and go, you know what, JP told me this was going to happen. He's telling me I'm fine, and I'm fine. So just push through it and then have a big experience. And, so, a lot of people will have that big experience and then tell me, oh my God, that's life-changing. I'm going to be here every month. Or I'm going to be here every week. Or I'm going to do it all the time. And then they don't do it again. They just don't. They get too freaked out to go back and do it, even though they know it was incredible and they could use it. We don't take care of ourselves in that
Yeah.
way. It's easier to stay with bad habits that we know hurt us. It's easier to stay in that discomfort that's familiar than to go into the unknown that feels good.
Mary Lou Henner is an actress who I've met a few times and spent some time with, and she has photographic memory. She was on Taxi and she was on The Apprentice. Really cool. She has this whole story, and she says, "Choose your hard." You know,
Yes.
everything. Listen, I mean, it's hard to stay stuck. It's hard to stay depressed. It's hard to, it's hard to stay in a bad relationship. It's hard to stay in a bad job. Like it's hard, right? And
Yep.
it's hard to change. It's hard to get a new habit, a new health habit. It's hard to like get up and go to the gym or eat healthy or, not eat crap. But choose your hard, right? All of
Yeah.
it's hard. Everything's hard. Choose your hard. And if you're choosing your hard, which is like, get up 15, 20 minutes earlier and lie on the floor and do breath work, which would be amazing to start the day off. I can't even imagine the amount of clarity someone would have after, like, if they started their day off, they get up, they go potty, and then they lay on the ground and they do 15, 20 minutes of breath work first thing in the morning. I mean, that
Yep.
would completely reset the day, energize the body, turn on the mitochondria, just totally detox and cleanse the body, introducing oxygen to the whole body, just amp up cellular energy production and mental clarity, turn off that inner critic and allow them to have that huge amount of clarity for the whole day. That sounds like the best, that would beat the best cup of coffee anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you get up in the morning and you do that, you walk into the world that day filled with gratitude and love. So you show up to wherever it is you're showing up that day, work or whatever, with gratitude and love. That's like, I mean, people are attracted to that. You become a magnet in the world, as opposed to showing up with all your stories, all your stuff, and like we're doing, and we're saying, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened last night," and let me tell you the story, and because that's how so many people are getting attention, which is really just a way that they're trying to get love. is they're telling all their stories, right? And if you can let go of those stories and just be present and start to embrace yourself and have gratitude and love for your life, and you can walk around in the world like that, it changes who you are in the world, and it changes what your world becomes, because you start to attract all these other things into your life. The last 20 years for me has just been a series of replacing one horrible bad habit with something better, right? I drink, I do drugs all day at work, and then I go home and drink. So let me clear that out and replace that with exercise and recovery and, helping other people. And then, okay, now I'm eating sugar and I'm doing this, and let me replace that with, ice plunges and, float tanks and breath work, and just trading off a bad habit for a good habit. And, you don't, I think the mistake too many people make is they try to do it all at once and then they fail. And then they go, yep, didn't work. And they go back to their old bad habits. When it's just like, pick one thing. Pick the one thing that you most want to change in your life right now and do that. Focus on that thing. And after you're successful with that, and you've seen that you can change that one thing, build on that.
Yeah.
Build on that. Like, oh, I saw that because I was able to show up and do this and eliminate drinking. And listen, I would read self-help books and spiritual books while I was drinking and doing drugs. It just doesn't work very well that way. So I kind of think that's the first thing. You can't. I've seen people show up to these kind of like these events, these motivational events, these guru events, and they're like, there's no judgment from me, but I just don't think it, you're not going to, none of it's really going to work if you're medicating, right? Which is if you're self-medicating. So,
Yeah.
start there, because you don't even know what's going on until you stopped with the drinking and the drugs or whatever that is, and however you're self-medicating, and then all these feelings come up and you go, oh my god, all these feelings are coming up, right? That's when breathwork is a great tool. Oh, all these feelings come up, let me lay down and breathe and clear them out and get clear. And what you start to get clear on is all your old stories, all the stories that you've been telling since you were a kid of who you are and why you do these things and how you try to seek love that, often doesn't work for us. And you start to get clear on those stories, and you can start to let go of those stories, even if they're true, especially if they're true. And when we can start to let go of our stories, our old stories, we can start to write some new ones. We can start to create some new chapters in our lives, and we can become a different person.
Is
It's up
that
to you.
is that level of self-reflection happen during the breath work, or is that those epiphanies come after the breath work when we're in that very clear-headed, mental state after we get up off the ground from breathing for about 20 minutes?
Both. So you'll have some things that'll come out while you're breathing, like some stuff will come out, some emotions will come up, and stuff will come out while you're breathing. And then afterwards, for me, I tell people, like, the breath after the breathing, that, laying there after you're done with the active breathing, that's the payoff. Like, that's when you get like these, I call them downloads from the universe, where it's like, oh, this is what I need to do, and I need to help this person, or I need to do this, or I need to create this, or I just need to be present with my kids. And I have this joke where I say, like, I want to have shirts made that say, I'm sorry for what I said before breath work, because it's been so many times, like, I've had an argument with my wife or something, and I go lay down and I breathe, and then I come back in the room and I'm like, babe, I'm sorry, I was just being a selfish jerk, and I love you and you're amazing. And I wouldn't have got that clarity of, like, whatever that thing wasn't that important, and what really is important, like, that's what it gets you to. It gets you to what's really important. And what's really important is gratitude and love, and those moments in your life that go in your heart. I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me afterwards and be like, the moments that I pulled in were, like, so unexpected and not what I thought at all. And I'm like, yeah, that's what really matters, because we think all the other stuff matters, and it doesn't. So it gets you really clear about what really matters in your life, and everything else is just a distraction. And that's amazing when you can get that clarity. I would have people come in and go, oh, I'm struggling with this relationship, or I'm struggling with this career decision, or I'm struggling with this. And I go, okay, let's just set the intention for clarity on it. And it's crystal clear when they come up. There's zero doubt. And they were so torn when they walked in the room. And they lay down and
Mm.
breathe, and what they need to do, the answer is crystal clear. And then what happens sometimes, especially around relationships, is a couple, the head will kick back on a couple days later, and fear kicks in. And fear goes, well, you don't really want to go back out there and date, do you? I mean, you don't want to go back on Bumble or Match.com. It's pain, and he's not that bad, and he does do this. And we start to make a case. We start to build up a case because the fear is telling us that we're not going to find anyone that's right for us. When the truth is that it's trite to say, but it's like you want to be whole and complete within yourself. Jerry Maguire sold us a lie, which is like, you complete me. Well, that's BS, right? Nobody completes you. You complete yourself.
Oh,
So,
I love
so
it.
it's just like when you complete yourself and you're whole and complete within yourself, and you're walking around with gratitude and love for your life and not looking for something more, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you are a magnet. You're a magnet to the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever you're into, whatever your thing is, but you're just a magnet to people who want to be around you, who want to be with you in some way, and who want to work with you, who want to hang out with you, whatever. It's like you become this magnet because it's so rare now in this day and age that people are not walking around needy, wanting something.
Feeling inadequate, feeling like there's a hole in them that they need to fill.
Yeah. There is literally nothing I need right now in my life. And it's weird. Like I've had some really good business wise, a bunch of financial windfalls lately, and I've gone like, oh, I should buy something. Like I'm like, there's nothing. There's nothing. It's I wanted that for so long, and like I got to that place. I'm like, there's nothing I need. Like I don't even know that like that watch isn't going to make me happy. Like I just put it away for my kids' college. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like there's nothing I need. There's nothing I want. It's an incredible place to get to, and it finally makes sense now looking back. And if you're in a part in your life where you're frustrated and you're angry, you're not there yet. Like there's that Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, right, where you when you go through all the stages of the hero's journey, and then at the end of the hero's journey you turn around and you help somebody else, you come back with the elixir,
Mm.
right? And that's where I feel like I'm at now. Like I'm just turning around and I'm helping other people, and it's incredible. And if you're struggling right now and you're listening to this and you're struggling with relationships and career and all that stuff, it doesn't make sense yet, and it doesn't make sense for you. You cannot connect the dots, right? Looking back, like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots until you're there. And there is no there really, but he took this. I found it fascinating. Steve Jobs took this font class in college, and he didn't know why. But then now we all know why we're staring at our Apple phone, right? We're staring at the iPhone. So it's just like it all makes sense for me in my life. Like all my disappointments, all my failures, all the things that I tried, they all came together for me to create this thing and share it with people. I never in a million years thought I would be doing this and sharing this with people. But it totally makes sense to me now, looking back. And I'm fulfilled in a way that I didn't know I would be, that I didn't know I wanted. Like the fulfillment, because I tell people all the time, like happiness, everybody's looking for happiness. They're searching for happiness. And I'm like, you're looking in the wrong place, because happiness is just an emotion, like sadness. It's going to come and it's going to go.
Right.
But fulfillment, filling yourself up, that's the key, because whether you're happy or whether you're sad, if you're fulfilled in what you're doing, happiness or sadness doesn't matter. So
Yes.
fulfillment is the key to search for, to work for, to find that fulfillment. And teaching breath work and helping people get sober has been the most fulfilling work I've ever done.
Mm.
And I'll keep doing it until, I've changed, millions of lives on the planet, or I find something more powerful to help people with.
Well, I love it. I love that your goal is to help millions of people. My goal is to help millions of people too, to be able to learn how to create optimal health. And that's why the podcast is called Learn True Health. They're going to learn how to create true health for themselves. And health is health mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually and energetically. And do that by listening to amazing guests like you, Jon Paul. Oh my gosh, it's been so incredible learning from you. I want to talk about your course because I have a feeling that my listeners are going to want to do it. Before we hit record, you said you were that I should do it, so I'm going to do your course, your 5-day course. I want you to tell us a bit about it, but first, have some clarifying questions. So, if someone wants to lie on the ground,
Yep.
and breathe, they want to do it for a minimum of 15 minutes, or you said your classes are 27 minutes long. So what's a
Well,
good,
the class is an hour, right? But the
oh,
active, so that the
got it.
class is like an hour and 15, but the active breathing, the active portion of this breath work that we're talking about is about, I usually do it and see it in a one-on-one session. It really depends on the person. Like somebody could be done in 20 minutes, right? Where in a, or they could be done in 30 minutes or 35 minutes. So in a class, it's really challenging to find that sweet spot of time, right? So what I generally try and do, because some people are coming that come every, time and that have been doing it for a while, and there's a lot of brand new people in the room. So I'm trying to find a sweet spot of time, but it's really different for everybody. So let's just say a minimum of like 16, 17 minutes. Let's say 15 to make it easier. And you could go up to 30 minutes. But I don't know. I wouldn't suggest 30 minutes if it's your very first time doing breath work. So you'd lay on the floor, and the active breathing is for 15 to 30 minutes, anywhere in that zone. And the way you might want to do it, the way I used to do it, was I'd create playlists, and I'd know by the song. So I'm going to do the active breathing for 6 songs. And I use songs that are motivational, like a workout, and I would do the active breathing during the 6 songs. And the last song or two, I would have emotion in there, like Landslide from Fleetwood Mac, right? Nobody makes it through Landslide without crying. Landslide breaks everyone. Fire and Rain from James Taylor breaks everyone. So anyways, you don't have to do that, but that's how I do it. And so then have some songs that are like beautiful, moving, calming after that. And those are the songs that I call the rest songs, because the best part of breath work is after the breath work, laying there and enjoying it. I tell people, like, you just did all that hard, uncomfortable work. Don't get up afterwards. Like, lay there, and that's when you get the payoff. I felt my
Mm.
head quiet for the first time in my life, like I'd always tried to do with drugs and alcohol, after breath work. So I just lay there and enjoy it and
So that's when you
enjoy
can
this, like,
meditate.
yeah, I mean, that's how I learned how to meditate, was through breath work. It was like, oh, this is what meditation is. This is the quiet space that I could never get to. And it would just, I would feel my body just vibrating with this incredible energy. And that's your energy that you can use to transform your life and other people's lives. And just lay there and enjoy it and get whatever comes in. You're going to get downloads. You're going to get messages. And I've heard all kinds of woo-woo stuff in the thing. People tell me their dead relatives have visited them when they're doing breath work, and people tell me that they have visions and all kinds of stuff, and I've had all kinds of stuff. And I try not to put that stuff out there too much, because I think it's different for everybody, and it's different every time you do it. So who knows what's going to happen for you? But be adventurous and go for it. Like, lay down on the floor and breathe in through your mouth, down into your belly, and then into your chest, and then let it fall out, and then start again. So I have, a couple CDs that are guided on iTunes that are like $11, I think, or $12. And that's the cheapest kind of like guided option, but you don't need to do that. You could just do it yourself. You can, and then I have this course, the 5-day emotional detox, which is on sale right now. I believe it's 40% off, and it's on my website, which is Breathe with JP, BREATHE with JP. So a lot of people write breath with JP and then can't find it. It's Breathe.
You need to
It's a
buy Breath with JP and just have it redirect.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's a really good idea. So there's courses on my website, and that, you'll see the buttons there. It'll say like online courses. So if you want the 5-day emotional breathwork detox, that's what the course is called. You'd click on my online course and it will take you there. And I also have the teacher trainings online, or I do the teacher trainings in person in Los Angeles as well. And then I offer them all as a package online. You can do the 5-day detox with the 2 teacher trainings as a package. But the 5-day detox, we talked a lot about it. I mean, the first session, the first day, is a video of me showing you the technique of breathwork, and it really goes into an incredible description. And there's a downloaded, one of those albums is in there that you can download and do it, right? The audio, and you can add music to it, your own music, or there's another way that you can play it with music. And then the next day is the affirmations, and you combine the affirmations with breath work. And then the third day is the transformational letter with breath work. And the fourth day is this thing called the eulogy, or the legacy, where you write your legacy, who you became at the end of your life, which is really powerful to do. And if you can read it to somebody too, it's even more powerful, because you write this and you go like, I got to get to work. It's time to get to work, right? And it's really moving. And I have people do it in my teacher trainings. I have them get up and read their legacy. And then the last day is a love letter to yourself. And you write the love letter to yourself, and you combine it with breath work. So if you did these exercises with breath work, and they don't have to be 5 days in a row, but if you did them, you would have a massive shift in your life. And then I would get an email from you saying like, thank you so much. And and I
Yes,
love
you
it.
would.
I love that. Like for me, that's the real payoff, is the email that says like, wow, I did this. And it's so unexpected, of like, it helped me heal this thing, or it changed this, and I feel different. And, I had, me and my wife were in the restaurant, and some woman came up to me in the restaurant, and she said, "Are you Jon Paul Crimi?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I did your 5-day detox online, and it was life-changing. Thank you so much." And I looked over. She said, "That's my husband over there." She pointed to her husband, and her husband mouthed, "Thank you" to me. I was like, "That's so awesome." And it's just incredible. And it was a combination of these workshops that I was doing, and I decided to just put them together in a course and see what would happen, and see if it would work. I didn't know if it would work. I took a chance. It was an idea that I had through breath work. It all comes to me through breath work. And so I put them online, and the response has been amazing. And I just feel so grateful that I get to share this with people. And because it was like, how do I share this with people in, other parts of the world? Because I got emails from people all the time who would hear a podcast with me, or see something, or hear about it. And I was like, I need an effective way to share this. So I did the iTunes albums. And then I did the course, and the course is really powerful because it helps, I think, when you see me kind of explain it to you physically,
Right, right.
when you watch it physically, when you see my diaphragm expanding, and you watch me do the technique. It's a little challenging to understand just hearing it, but I think, people can do it. I've had people listen to it and hear it and do it, and it had incredible results. Oftentimes when people do it from like just hearing a podcast like this, is they'll do 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then they'll get scared and they'll stop.
Right.
Uh,
They
and
got to
so,
power through.
yeah, I mean, that's actually why the class helps. It's kind of like a peer pressure in a good way. Like everyone around you's doing it, and you hear people around you having emotional experiences, and you start to get emotional. And so classes are really good, or private sessions are really good for people, but not everybody has access to that. So if you don't have access to that, that's why the online courses are great.
This makes so much sense why you have a link to Spotify with all these playlists. I was, going through your website. And it's like, oh, he's on Spotify. And I click on it. It's just a bunch of playlists of songs. I'm like, what? Now I get it. So I could go.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. So like, all right, so I have years of my classes. Those are all my classes, right, that I've done on Spotify. And if you look at the playlist, let me get one up here so I can kind of go over it. If you look at a playlist, let's just say, here we go, Bend. Okay, so the first song is like a song, Feeling Good by Lauryn Hill. That's a real intense motivational song, right? And so then the second song, is another motivational song. And then, so the first 3 or 4 songs are really pushing you. And then we get into emotional stuff. And then there's a song in there that's just sound. And what I'm doing there is I'm actually playing the gong in my class. So I have a gong. I can't believe I have a gong and I play a gong in my class. It's just so weird for me. But it happened. How that came about was like, I was in a class and I didn't like the class, but we screamed into the gong, and that was such a powerful experience for me that I added it to my class, right? So I have a song where I play the gong and you're still breathing during the gong playing, which is really weird. And then I count it down. On the count of 3, we're going to scream into the gong. 1, 2, 3. Ah! And, I'll have 200 people in the room just screaming, yelling at the top of their lungs. And that in itself is a powerful, powerful release, because where did your life do you scream at the top of your lungs from the bottom of your soul? When do you get to do that? It just doesn't happen
Mm.
unless stuff's gone really wrong in your life, right? It doesn't happen. So people, that adds to the release at the end of the breath work. And then after the scream, I'm like, okay, just relax. And then another song will come on and it'll be like an emotional song, like Be Still by The Fray, or I Am Light by Andy R.E. I mean, just all these, whatever song I pick, Heroes by Peter Gabriel. And so that's the rest song. And that's the payoff. That's the beauty. So I don't say anything during that. And then this other song, Devi Prayer, comes on. And so you shouldn't still be breathing by then if that comes on, right? And so that's the song where it's like a yogi kind of song, and the woman's like, oh, she's like sort of singing like that, and that's when I have people reach up and pull moments of gratitude, moments of love into their heart, and then I read something, and then I say, okay, I'm going to go outside in the lobby, and come out in a bit, like enjoy these next couple songs, and just lay here, and this is what you came for, not the breathing. And then people will line up and hug me on the way out, and I get 200 hugs, and I feel amazing.
Wow. Oh, that sounds awesome. Your
Yeah,
classes sound amazing.
it's a good time. I mean, I'm not, it's pretty powerful. I mean, it's a ride. It's an experience, and I've made it such. I I tweaked it and I honed it and I made it into this incredible experience where people come and I have people that buy 10 tickets and bring all their family members.
Cool.
Yeah, and people that bring rehabs bring all their people in rehab or sober living, and people come with their friends, and I have people drive. I've had people fly in for my classes. It's wild. I mean, it's become a thing. I'm feeling really blessed. I'm feeling really lucky that I get to do this incredible thing that changes people's lives. And
Yeah.
so I just never knew that I would be here doing this. And I'm so glad that I didn't get what I thought I was supposed to get, because it would have been so much less.
You thought you were going to some relaxing yoga breathing class.
No,
But you're
I meant in my life. In my
Oh.
life, I wanted to be some big, celebrity thing,
Oh.
and that's not what happened for me, and
Mm.
I got so much more because I saw that wasn't going to fix me. I saw that firsthand,
Mm.
I believe that that's the reason I worked with all those people, is because I got to see that wasn't going to fix me. Um,
Yeah.
so I got something much more fulfilling,
Oh,
you know.
yeah, you did. Absolutely. And you have been training teachers. You've been training people through you have an online teacher training and an in-person teacher training.
Correct.
So thousands of people have been certified in your technique and work with they work with individuals. So people could do one-on-one work, or they can do classes. So it's a movement.
Yeah.
You're the
Yeah.
head of this movement.
I don't know if I'm the head of it, because there's been other people that have been around doing it for a long time, but I think that I teach it in a way that I just have taken all the kind of new agey woo woo out of it. So I feel like I'm more accessible to most people, I had a fire chief come to my teacher training. I've had doctors, PhDs, psychologists coming to my teacher training. And so I think I'm just teaching it in a more accessible way that translates to your housewife, to your angry guy, and to different people who really need this. People bringing their teenagers to my class, which you have to ask first. But yeah, I think that it was really kept within these new agey woo-woo circles, and that was kept small and done that way, and it just turned a lot of people off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just tweaked the technique to make it more accessible to everyone else. And one time I had one of these teachers that I'm talking about. That's the criticism. If I get any criticism, it's other breathwork teachers, right? Who studied from someone else or had a different style, and they don't like it, right? And so this woman came to my class, and she's like, I can kind of see how you're for people who would never do this work. And I was like, Yeah, that's exactly right. I want a room full of people who need help, not eight other breathwork teachers and pretending that we're all spiritual in white robes and mala beads. Like I want to help. I want to help angry guys and stressed out moms. That's who I'm for. Thank you for the compliment that you weren't intending as a compliment. You know, and and I don't do the whole spiritual speak. I worked at a meditation studio. I worked at a couple of them, and I don't anymore. I rent spaces and just do it myself. The teachers would come in with these, and I love a lot of these teachers, but I would hear people come in with these voices that are like, "Hey everyone, I know it's been a hard day. Mercury's in retrograde right now," and I'm going, "Oh my God!" Like, A, that's not your real voice. B, like, don't blame it on Mercury in retrograde. Your life is a mess because you've made it that way. Like, let's just own it and let's fix it. So I'm kind of like a little edgy, and I'm still, I can still be a jerk sometimes. I mean, I'm a lot less of a jerk, but I'm a human being. Like, I used to go to these classes and I go, oh my God, I was just on the 405 freeway to the 101 to the 10, which are the three worst freeways in America, and to get here. And I almost choked someone out in the parking lot. But don't worry, we're going to put gratitude and love in your heart right now. So, so, so many people would be like, oh my God, this guy's so real. He's so authentic. And I'm like, no, I'm really going to kill somebody. Just lay down. Stop messing around. Put your phone away. Like, so
Shut up and breathe.
yeah, I've mellowed out quite a bit as a teacher. Um, but it's irony that attracted to a lot of people to me and my style, is my sort of like angry breathwork teacher. I mean, I'm not angry anymore. I can get irritated, but it's just not there. It's just not. It's most of it's gone,
I
and
love it.
yeah, it's really powerful. And so, if I have anything to share with anybody, it's like, don't believe your head. Try something different. Try something new. Try something that you would never try, do something that you would never do, and be open, and then keep showing up for yourself because you're worth it.
Oh, I love it so much. You say you take the woo woo out of it. Um so you're so not woo woo, so then when kind of like spiritual things happen, it's a bit of surprise for some people. Can you share with me what what kind of interesting spiritual things have happened for you in doing the breath work that you weren't that you were shocked happened, that you weren't aware would happen?
Oh, so I don't usually share the spiritual stuff because I don't want people to get turned off by it, right? Because I feel like if you hear someone share their spiritual experience, you go, okay, I'm out. Like
Well,
that's not for me,
to
right? But
right,
if you have a spiritual experience yourself, different story.
right. Well, to pre-frame it, one of my regular guests is an exorcist, so I think my listeners are more open-minded than the regular population.
Okay. All right, we can dive into it. I mean, I one of my first breathwork sessions, I saw myself on a stage with reaching out in the air, hand in the air, and I had like 100 people in the room, and they were all reaching out, laying on the floor, and I was like, "What's so weird? Why would I be doing that?" And it was like, and then I was on a stage a couple years later, with 100 people in the room, and they had them doing that, pulling the moments in, and I remembered that first session.
Yes.
And I went, oh my God, that was the thing that I saw in the breathwork session. Like that was I saw this years ago, and I didn't
Yeah.
understand what it meant. And so it was like a future download.
Yeah.
Um, and I would get messages like, oh, you need to go call this person. You need to help this person. Always like, it was always about help. It's always been about helping people. And I'm a selfish, self-centered person by nature. So I'm always like, damn, why can't it just be about me? But it's never about me, because when I help other people, my life gets really good. And when I focus
Mhm.
on myself, my life gets really lousy. So, uh, just parts of my body healing, traumas in my body from different things that happened to me in my life. I would feel that. I felt my very first session, I felt connected to the universe. God, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. And I felt it in an undeniable way. Like I felt it in the way that, like, I would want to get out of the car and kill someone in LA in the freeway. Like it was that real for me. It was that undeniable. And I felt it. I felt the presence of something in my life. And it was the first time I'd ever felt it. And I'd grown up in religion. I'd traveled the world and gone through temples in Cambodia and cathedral in Notre Dame. I'd done it all. And I'd never felt it anywhere in my life, ever. And I felt it in this breathwork session the first time, and it was incredible. I came home and told my wife about it, and um, I made love to my wife, and I said, I just made a baby, and she said, shut up, you idiot. And I said, no, I felt the soul of the baby come through me. And the next day, she was nauseous, and I was like, that's a baby. And she's like, it's the next day, idiot. Shut up. And then I had this thing the next day, which I'd never experienced before, which was my head was completely turned off for the entire day. It was,
Wow.
yeah, it was the best day of my life, I gotta say. But I felt like maybe what someone feels like, I don't know for sure, with schizophrenia or some kind of mental illness, because I was walking around kind of just giggling, present and giggling. And I said to my wife, I said, do I look like I'm crazy? And she said, you just look really happy. But I had never experienced anything like it. It was like my friend who's a spiritual, kind of guru healer. He said, you were in the Buddha mind. I was in the Buddha mind for that day, and it was just an incredible day. And that, sure enough, that was the conception of my daughter that day, that night before. Um, it's just been one awakening after another. There have been times where I've done fasting. I started fasting, and I would breathe in a fast, and I would go, "Oh my God, now I get it. What the connection is between fasting and spirituality." I,
Mm.
I would have these intense breath sessions where I would do the active breathing for an hour or more. And then I would lay there vibrating on the floor for 2 hours, just connected to some kind of source, to some incredible thing. And so there's been journeys like that. And I've done it on beaches and planes. And I have a float tank, a sensory deprivation tank in my house, which I love. That's my favorite place to go. And I've done it a ton in there. Um, and I freaked myself out, like maybe I'm building up too much carbon monoxide in here. But it has vents, but your mind is really dangerous, right? It can be really dangerous. Like
Right.
it's like acid. They say, if you start thinking you're going to have a bad acid trip, you do, right? And I think that really translates into breath work too. If you think you're going to have a bad time, there have been people who've emailed me like all scared and worried, and I go, yeah, don't come. If you think you're going to have a bad time, you are going to, whether you think you're right or not, you're right.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the brain is such a powerful thing. The mind is this supercomputer, and it has to be right. And so we make it right. So if you think you're going to have a bad time, then you probably are.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to shift our mindset.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it's
And
right. Our mindset
I
is right.
I program people, like you're talking about the NLP. I tell people, like, you're going to have this incredible transformational experience tonight. You're going to walk out of here different than the way you came in. If you can just do these little things, if you can just push through these little discomforts, you're going to leave here different. And people do. Everyone in
Mm-hmm.
that room is they're different than the way they came in, without a doubt. I've been teaching it for 8 years now. I've never had somebody come up and say nothing happened. I've never had, just hasn't happened. I've never had anyone ask for their money back. It's never happened.
Oh my gosh, that's
I have had
amazing.
people quit, and I at the studio, right? Like I would see like 2 or 3 people, they quit. Like they give up like 5 minutes in because it got hard, it got uncomfortable, or they started to feel the physical sensations and they got scared and freaked them out, and they stopped and they go, "This isn't for me." And I'm like, "You haven't got to the other side yet. You don't know if it's for you. You have to fully do it." But what I found out is I would go ask the studio, "Oh, was that person here on a guest pass, on a free guest pass?" And they're like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because they gave up, because there was no investment." So being invested is often key, to this thing. Like having some kind of investment, having some kind of exchange, will help you to push through. If I make you pay $1,000 to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah, if you and so I bet the people that fly into LA and like dedicate, a few days of their life between travel and getting to your class, I
Yep.
bet they get the biggest breakthroughs out of being
They do.
there.
Yeah. The more invested you are, the bigger the experience is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, test it out. Let me know what you think. Have the guts. You gotta push through it.
I know, I'm totally gonna do it. I'm so
The one
excited.
thing I just realized I forgot to say that it works better on an empty stomach.
Really glad you mentioned to do it on an empty stomach because when I was in massage therapy college back when I was 19, many lifetimes ago, I had learned this breathing exercise with that also involved clenching, like you clench your muscles and let go, and you clench your muscles and let go. And I came home and did it to my roommate, and he threw up everywhere because he had just eaten. And he's like, "What are you doing to me?" And I was like really afraid of it afterwards. So I'm really glad because it was so weird. He was fine. He was just lying there 1 second. Next second, he's throwing up everywhere. So I imagine that deep breathing, because the diaphragm is pushing on the stomach.
That's
You
correct.
definitely want to be. So how many hours away from food should we be?
Look, the less you've eaten, the further you're away from it, the bigger the experience will be. But if
Hmm.
you're someone who gets really lightheaded or dizzy or has low blood sugar, then I would say, 2 hours, 3 hours, and bring a bar or bring a juice to have after the breath work to take care of yourself. But if you're someone that can handle it and that that does fasting regular, then you're fine. Like, do it fasted. um, my biggest experiences have been fasted. But
Yeah.
listen, if you've never done this before and you're not someone that fasts, don't do that. Like, don't fast all day and then do this big huge breathwork session. I mean, it's too much too soon.
The
So
mismatchers that are listening, the mismatchers who have to like do what you don't tell them not to do, are all
yeah,
gonna like do a 7 day fast and then start breath work. The mismatchers, just
they're
you've
gonna
been
see
warned.
God. They're gonna see God, and then they're gonna email me 50 emails after that.
So take it slow. It sounds like the best time is first thing in the morning because you're already coming out of a natural fast, having not eaten for the last 8 hours.
That's right. That's right. And or like, I do my classes often at night, so people will hold off and they normally have dinner at 5 or 6 or 7, and I'll do my class at 7 or 8 o'clock, and they'll be really hungry, and then they'll do the class and they're like, oh my God, they'll have this big experience, then they'll go eat with their friends afterwards. But I would suggest at least 2 to 3 hours of an empty stomach.
Very good.
Yeah.
So your 5 day class is on breathewithjp.com. And of
Yep. The
course,
5-day emotional detox, it's called.
5 day emotional detox, the link to that and the link to everything Jon Paul does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. I want to have you back on the show. After I've done your 5 day emotional detox, we should definitely have you back. We should keep diving into this topic. Um, I think that this is incredibly valuable. It is, my listeners are turning over stones and trying to figure out, what am I eating? Am I eating things wrong or right? And, what am I doing? Should I be taking these supplements? Should I be taking these herbs? Should I be taking these classes? Should I be doing this or doing that? And they're turning over stones. And this is the stone that 100% of the population should turn over.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. And I definitely want to have you back. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to complete today's interview? Any homework you want to give or any final words that you'd like to impart upon us?
Um, I think I just want to say that I think I already said it, which is you're worth it. Show up and love yourself no matter what, no matter how hard things get. Everybody wants somebody to show up and love them for who they are, the way they are, when they're not loving themselves that way, right? We teach people how to
Mm.
love us. We show people how to love us by how we love ourselves. And how we love ourselves is how we show up and do the hard work for ourselves. So show up and do the hard work for yourself because you're worth it. And I want to say this little quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is, I have been repeating this to myself over with my hand on my heart, and it is so healing. To love is to be there. We cannot love if we are not fully breathing into each moment. May we have the courage to open to each moment with a sense of curiosity. May we have the desire to show up for ourselves, no matter what. May we put our hands on our hearts and speak in a gentle voice. Dear one, I am here for you. Dear one, I am here for you. Dear one, I am here for you. All my love.
Jon Paul Crimi, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show. I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fabulous.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal, give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.